Hey, welcome back to another episode of Saturday Mornings with Nobody, where we're going to take you straight through the giant purple GameCube with the Guardian to see if we can feist the user in one of my all-time favorite cartoons of all time. Now, we're going to be perfectly clear. Alright, on this show, I ramble a lot about some goofy stuff. I talk about stuff that maybe not a whole lot of people are interested in, and this might be true to the case here too, because this was one of those shows that I grew up with that I remember to this day trying to explain to people that don't really know for sure whether the show was something that just didn't spark their interest, or was something that just like flew right over their radar and they were too busy watching like anime and Toonami to completely even just like overlook it. Now, I wonder, was this on Toonami? I've done enough research, but never do enough. Anyway, the show I'm talking about is a show called ReBoot.
I come from the net, through systems, peoples, and cities, to this place, mainframe. My format, Guardian,
If you don't remember ReBoot, then clearly we've never been friends. I'm just kidding. ReBoot was a Canadian show that was created for one of the networks out there in 1994. Now, oddly enough, there was a lot of technology limitations back then that people don't really understand now. Try to show a 15-year-old a VHS tape and just kind of have them guess what it's for and what they use it for. And, throw some skin on that one, because I'm pretty sure you would make a lot of money against a teenager because they wouldn't know jack about it. But because of the limitations back then, there wasn't a lot of fancy shows. People talk about Transformers Beast Wars because that was a full CGI cartoon, but even then, that was still years ahead of the show that I'm talking about. Now, show of hands, because I don't like showing my age that much, but how many people remember the music video Money for Nothing by Dire Straits? Anybody? MTV? Used to show music. Now I don't know what they show. Money for Nothing was a completely CGI music video with, live action elements of like a concert that Dire Straits did, and it was like awesome, and it was one of those like pivotal launching points for computer animation and stuff to kind of like start moving into, I guess, like popular entertainment or whatever, like network stuff. I don't really know exactly how to word that, but the people that made that music video got together and decided that they wanted to make a cartoon. And as they were working on it, they created a bunch of very elaborate characters and a very elaborate story. And I remember they even did like a really tiny concept piece that was essentially one of the characters from the show, but like super, what's that word, like downgraded, like base graphics, just to kind of show the premise of what they were trying to do on the tech that they had. And I mean, like, it's blocky and gorgeous. I love watching that old school stuff. Like when you see Lois with blonde hair before they actually like got to get the show, like the original pilot, and you're like, that's some cool back behind the scenes stuff not a lot of people know. Like that little snigment spawned the show ReBoot. Now again, the show ReBoot, like the one I'm talking about, had 4 seasons. It had like a really good run, but it had some hurdles. Like first off, in order for it to be done, they had to completely do an entire world inside this computer space, because the story about it was a city that's supposed to represent the inside of a computer, like a circuit board. And all of the people that live in the city are sprites and bits and stuff that live and work, autonomously with each other in order to, quote, like make the computer function. And users who use the computer would like instigate games, which were these big giant purple towers that would fall down into the landscape, and whatever like little district that it landed in, those people were thrusted involuntarily into defending themselves in this game based on whatever it was that the user was playing. And it could have been dogfight simulators or like adventure games, puzzle games, whatever, but these little sprites would have to hit a reboot button on their chest and turn into sprites for the game and fight, and if they lost, their entire little area would be erased. And in comes what my favorite characters, Bob, Dot, and Indo, who were Guardians, and they dropped into whatever game they were. They tried to race from wherever they were to wherever the games were dropping, and they would reboot in because they had I don't want to know what the word is. They had like special. They were like security protocol, I guess, and like Bob himself was the main Guardian. Like Indo and Dot were just kind of like Guardians in training, but he had a watch that was like a glitch. That's what it was called, and he could like use it like zip lines or make weapons out of it, you know, whatever. And it was his job to protect the system, to protect the city. And like that was one in itself, and that was basically what the original, you know, first 2 seasons were about. It showcased Bob and everybody kind of living together, a lot of slapstick comedy for the time. And it's funny because they used that low-grade tech at the time to make this show, so they figured the best way to do it to avoid having to make, you know, like lifelike characters and do like truly authentic human response movement and stuff. They used that story, you know, a CGI show about the inside of a computer, so they made it look like the inside of a computer. Isn't that smart? And they were able to work with that and create an entire, you know, story, a universe, basically. Like, there was actual antagonists, too. A brother-sister combo, Megabyte and Hexadecimal, they were viruses, and they would come in and try to corrupt the system. And I think it was in an episode where Bob had to release Hexadecimal to fight Megabyte, and then it ended up turning against him, and that's what spawned a 2-season-long fight between good and evil, while also having to, like, fight some kid who's trying to play Mario Kart in the middle of downtown. You know, like, what a crazy concept. And to put some history on the show, like, it didn't exactly have a steady pace. Like, first 2 seasons were released on the Canadian network, and then they were bought in America and shown on, like, Saturday morning cartoon channels, you know? And then when it got canceled after the 2nd season, I don't know why, fan base went nuts. Now, here's the funny thing. It didn't get canceled in Canada. It got canceled in America. So all the American audience was just, like, left hanging at the 2nd season. And, you know, while Canadians were up there like, hey, we're still filming, eh? And just kept doing what they were doing, we were left out wondering what happened. And I mean, like, the 3rd season was what the animators and creators of the show considered to be, like, their true ending. Okay, now, remember I said it was 4 seasons. Now, the 3rd season was dark and dramatic and just awful, you know, like, we had heroes lost and main characters die and, you know, cliffhangers and just terrible stuff happen, you know. The whole city ended up corrupted by the Megabyte character. And it ended, you know, Bob and Dot, sad, watching the city be corrupted, and there was nothing they could do. Roll credits. And all the Canadian guys were like, high five, yeah, this is great, high five, everybody did a good job. And I don't know if it's just like American audiences, but we as a people are, like, devastated when we don't get closure. I just imagine, like, a bunch of little 14-year-old faces. And then what? And that's what happened. I mean, years went by. I think it was 3 years, in fact, before they released what was a 2-movie tie-in, which was considered the 4th season. And it basically was, I guess it was like the good boy ending where, like, everything happened positive, you know, the heroes won and the bad guys lost and it was a big fight and blah, 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 blah. And what was really great about it is that the 4th season was done as 2 separate movies. I think about 90 minutes running time. And then they got bought by Cartoon Network after it got canceled after the 3rd season. And then when it got bought by Cartoon Network, they split it up into 8 episodes. And then that was the closing point. Now, I mean, like, the story was completely different. What was like a happy, bubbly cartoon in the first couple of seasons was a dark, gritty, like, fight for life, adventure drama, I guess, basically, because it was, in fact, supposed to be originally a movie. And it closed the book, you know, bad guys, like I said, lost, good guys won. And it didn't even end there. You know, what was closure for a bunch of 90s and, like, early 2000s kids, because I think it ran from 1994 to 2001. Years later, people have been talking about, like, what if we made the show again? What if we rebooted ReBoot? And what it ended up happening was Netflix spawned the idea to take the original premise and just kind of step on it. And I didn't really want to talk about this in this episode, but I had to make a point that years later, ReBoot still continued to make an impact because people created a show that was basically like a weird, I don't know, like Power Rangers, high school drama, reboot, knockoff Abomination thing that I don't suggest watching. You know, if you want to watch it, by all means. But go back and watch the original show because it's so fun and it's so great to watch the jarring special effects of back then and still get a very vivid story from it. You know, I totally promote watching this show. I think it's great. Yeah. Guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Saturday Mornings with Nobody. If you have a show that you wanted to watch, or if you can think of your favorite moment from that show and you want to put it down in the comments below, by all means do it. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe. My name is Nobody. I love your face, and I'm going to see you next time.